We are in Hudson, Colorado. We are at the site of the Burlington Northern train tracks, where several people have been killed on foot crossing the tracks, and a couple of them were kids and two adults that I know of. But train tracks are extremely dangerous. I mean, you've got crossing guards that tell you when to stop when a train is close. And if you don't abide by that, it's 90% of the time going to be fatal. If not, you're going to be seriously injured if you don't obey the crossing guards. Sometimes these crossing guards in particular, so I used to live in Hudson, and after the first person I'm aware of was killed here, the crossing guards would, in the middle of the night or any time actually, automatically close by themselves. They'd come down, and people would sit there for several minutes, and the railroad's been out here, and they can't find a problem with anything regarding the crossing guards. No electrical issues, no mechanical issues, nothing. So the guards come down on their own. It's not just familiar here, but it happens everywhere. If a crossing guard is down, wait a few minutes, or go a different route. A different route to cross railroad tracks is always the best bet if the crossing guards are down. They do track switches here for the railroad. A track switch is when the crossing guards come down. It can take 20 to 30 minutes for them to do a track switch. And when they do a track switch, the train tracks are closed off. So an alternative route is advised every time. And don't ever try to fight a train. Don't ever try to race a train across the tracks, or your last memory is going to be like these crosses behind me. These crosses are so that people know what happened here and the fatalities that happened because people were trying to beat the train. You don't ever want to ever try to beat the train, because a train is always going to kill you. It's going to win. Doesn't matter what kind of vehicle you're in, doesn't matter anything. A train is always going to win. Always obey the train track laws when you're crossing, and if a crossing guard is down for 20 or 30 minutes, be advised. They are doing track switches, and that is that. They take their time and they have no consideration for you as an individual in your vehicle trying to cross the track. Find an alternative route because you'll be sitting for a long time. Always when driving, patience is a virtue. Patience is your best friend. Never fight anything, any kind of vehicle, whether it be a train, a tractor, a semi, or a piece of heavy equipment. It doesn't matter. Don't argue with them if you're in a car. Let them have the road. There is a right of weight law that states vehicles bigger than a 4-door sedan or a 2-door vehicle, like a car, a bigger vehicle has the right of weight. So when you argue with a car or you argue with the truck, you're not going to win. If you argue with the tractor, you're not going to win. Heavy equipment, go around them. Stop, pull over, let them have the road. If they're going to try to run you over and run you off, don't do it. And a train, some go slow, some go fast, some stop. And when they're stopped, find an alternative route to save your life and everybody else's life. The conductors and the engineers and the brakemen of these trains know what it's like to take someone's life and to see their life end right then and there. You can go down these tracks, and the vibes and feelings you get when you're on these tracks, especially here in Hudson, is very creepy because of how many deaths there have been because of the trains. Always be careful when crossing the tracks. Be careful in general, anywhere around trains, because a train doesn't care. When the first person that I'm aware of died here, I was able to talk to the news and tell the news that these crossing guards will go down at any point in time, and it doesn't matter whether there's a train or whether there isn't one. These crossing guards will go down. Burlington Northern's been out trying to fix them. They have no idea what's wrong with them. Ideally, people think it's the ghosts of the people who were killed here. Very well could be. They very well could be saying hello because they don't want to be forgotten. And I understand what that's like. These people that were killed here were untimely and tragic. The first person, they were finding bits and pieces of on the train, on the front of the train, and all down the tracks for a mile. It takes a train up to 3 miles, depending on how heavy it is. Depending how many cars it has and how heavy it is, it can take a train up to 3 miles to stop. You gotta think, if you're killed by a train, they're gonna find your body spread everywhere. And it's gonna take an act of cadaver dogs to find the bits and pieces of you to make you complete for your funeral. So, ideally, don't toy with the train or anything bigger than the vehicle you're in. It is, if you want to see your family alive again, and you want to come home safe, don't fight with anything that's bigger than you. Always pay attention to where you're at and what you're doing and your surroundings. Don't disobey crossing guards, and kids especially, stay away from the tracks. Obey the crossing guards as a pedestrian on foot. You can't outwin a train. May look like they're going slow when they're coming up on the tracks, but they're not. They can go from anywhere from 5 miles an hour, depending on what the railroad has set for that point in time in the tracks. I used to work for Union Pacific. I had to go through extensive training on what track lights mean, what track switches mean, what lights and all that mean, and speeds. They can go from 5 miles an hour up to 25 or 30 miles an hour, depending on the load. Even if it looks like an empty train, it's probably not. Always expect a train to be full and running hot and heavy because they have a time frame. They have regulations they have to go through. And I can't stress enough how important it is to obey train tracks. So there's your little FYI about tracks. If you don't want to die, don't fight the train. You want to come home in one piece, don't fight the train. You don't want, your family doesn't want to have to identify you by a piece of hair. You don't want to be identified by maybe a fingerprint. And you don't want to become hamburger by a train, because that's what will happen. Trains are notorious for decapitating people and spreading remains for a mile up to 2 miles for them to stop before your body is completely found. So always be aware of the things around you, and vehicle safety, obey crossing guards. Whether the arms are down or not, obey them anyway. In Hudson, Colorado, Shannon, I'm out.